Okay, welcome to Logarithms Day 1. We just finished our unit on exponential functions, so that leads us right into logarithms. So the first thing that I wanted you to do was to graph the function 2 to the x. So I already have this graphed on my paper. You can pause this and graph your function if you'd like. I made a T-chart, but you could do this right in your calculator if you wanted to. So what we want to do is graph the original function, and then we want to graph the inverse. Okay, it's been a little bit since we graphed the inverse. So if you remember, when we graphed inverses, just by looking at the graph, we can easily graph the inverse of a function by switching the x and the y values. So from here, I'm going to make my T-chart of the inverse function just by changing the x and y values. And then once you do that, you can graph that inverse function. Okay, so there's the graph of the inverse function. Now remember also that that is the reflection over the line y equals x. Okay, so that's how we graphically get the inverse of an exponential function. Now, if we go to solve for the inverse function of f of x, in order to solve for the inverse, you're going to switch the x and the y values. So instead of y equals 2 to the x, now we have x equals 2 to the y power. Well, I need to solve this function for y. Well, how are we going to solve this? We can't take the y-th root of something. So instead, we have to use what's called a logarithm. Okay, I have the definition of a logarithm down here. So this is the important part right now. This says here that if I had b to the y equals x, which is what I have up here. I switch these around and I have 2 to the y equals x. Now remember, that's my inverse function. So I can use this formula that says the log base b of x is equal to y. So in order to take my function and rewrite this, I would have the log base b. So my b in this case is 2 of x equals the y value. This is the inverse function that we were looking for. So my original function is f of x equals 2 to the x power. The inverse of that is log base 2 of x. So the function is equal to log base 2 of x. For today, we're just going to work on changing back and forth between exponential form and logarithmic form. Okay? So one thing that I do is I always say to myself what I've been saying to you. So I always say log base b of x equals, now if you take a look, y is the exponent. So I always say to myself log base or base b of x equals the exponent. So it's giving us a way to solve for a variable that happens to be the exponent. Okay, so let's take the first example here. Write each expression in exponential form. So I'm giving you a logarithmic expression and I need to write it in exponential form. So again, log base b. So the base in this case is 2. Okay. Log base b of x equals the exponent. So this 3 is my exponent. Okay. So 2 to the third equals 8. And that's a true statement. Okay. Let's try part B. Log base b, so 4 is my base. My exponent is this -4. So 4 to the -4th equals 1 over 256. Again, another true statement because 1 over 4 to the 4th power is 1 over 256. Now, if you take a look at C, maybe you already noticed it's missing the base. This is what we call base 10. So, anytime you don't see a base written, that base is always a 10. It's just assumed to be there. It's like how if I said to you, I have the variable x, we know the exponent on x is the first power, but we don't write it. Same idea here. So if I wanted to take this and rewrite it, the base is 10, the exponent is 2, and that is equal to 100. Okay. The last thing that I'm going to do for today is now go from exponential form, and we're going to rewrite this in logarithmic form. So now I'm actually writing the log. So I have the log base b. Well, in this case, the base is 15. So the log base b of whatever x is, in this case, 3,375, is always equal to the exponent, which is 3. And then again over here. So I have the log. What is the base? So the base is 125 of the value 5 is equal to the exponent, which is 1/3. That's where we're going to stop for right now. So on the homework sheet that goes along with this, you are only going to be doing problems 1 through 12. Okay, so I'm stopping here. We're doing problems 1 through 12 on the homework.